Haven't talked to this guy in a broadcast form in a while, and he's truly one of my favorites, and he's a really good dude that I got to know when I was at Sportsnet, and we've stayed connected. I enjoy him a lot, immensely, talking about hockey, which he gets to do on all Bruins broadcasts on NESN, but he's also got his own podcast, Morning Brew, with Razor, who is Andrew Raycroft. So anybody who's prepared to do a podcast with a goalie deserves even extra credit. Would you please welcome our dear friend, our good friend, Billy Jaffe joins us from the East Coast. Billy, how the heck are you?
I'm a glutton for punishment having to deal with a former goalie. Actually, he's the most normal. Andrew Raycroft is the most normal goaltender that I think I've ever dealt with, which is scary and it's awesome at the same time.
Okay.
No, he is. So no, Rob, it's awesome to be on with you. I am thrilled that you've rekindled your passion of talking and talking sports, in particular hockey. And I know all things, especially Calgary. And I'm glad that this worked out. My schedule in a good way has been really, really, really busy, but I'm just thrilled that this has worked out. We're having a Wednesday, a gorgeous Wednesday afternoon, by the way, Rob. Gorgeous Wednesday. It's playoff hockey. It's Boston playoff hockey. And I know people think, Jesus, you Boston people, but it's unbelievable. Like, I'll just get it out of the way right now. I have no words. Like, I've run out of adjectives to describe what has happened this year with this team here.
I know.
Crazy.
It's insane. So let me try it this way, Billy. 1 year ago, when I would have tuned in or downloaded Morning Brew, what were you and Raycroft talking about? What was the mood a year ago, game 82? This still made the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah.
But what was the mood around the team?
Oh, Jesus. I have such a bad memery. Been hitting the head a lot. I would tell you this. Going into a pretty good season, if I remember correctly, it was 101, 107 points, something like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad. But there was this thing kind of lingering out there about, but are they good enough to really win more than a round? Are they going to be? Remember, they took on the Carolina Hurricanes.
Right.
And it ended up being the ultimate homer series as each team won all their games at home. And because Carolina had home ice, they won the series 4-3. So what would we have talked about? We would have talked about how it was nice to get through this regular season. We had some nice performances. We have questions, though, about the second line. We have questions about the usage of the Bergeron line. They expect too much out of them. We didn't have that much question about the D, at least we thought, because, Hampus Lindholm had come in and played pretty well.
Right.
And you're like, oh, you got McAvoy and Lindholm. That's good, right? And Grizz. What about goaltending? That was a big question. Huge question last year, this time, before hitting into the playoffs. So that's what we would have talked about. And we probably would have BS'd about some other stuff, non-hockey, on the show, too.
Of course we would have. We still will. At that time, though, and this is where I'll jog your memory, I believe Jake DeBrusk had asked quietly for a trade. The team had dealt with it. The player dealt with it. Everybody was professional, but that was a storyline last year, correct?
It was earlier in the year.
Okay.
This is, and I won't go through the whole timeline.
Yeah.
Once Jake DeBrusk asked for the trade, and I'm going to say it was November or December, and it was public. And by the way, Rob, he had asked for a trade before that. It just finally come out again. And then it was later in the year that Bruce Cassidy actually put Jake with Bergeron and Marchand and said, here you go. Like, not here you go, show me. He's like, hey, listen, here's an opportunity. Make the most of it. Go do this, go do that. And Jake did that. Jake did. He started his ascension or re-emergence as a player when Bruce did that. And when Jake, I think, got more comfortable. And let's not forget, on trade deadline day, it was announced, Rob, that Jake signed a 2-year extension.
Yep.
So everything was kind of tuckered out. When I say tuckered out, meaning he wasn't getting traded then. So that was good. That was in March. And then in April was all right. And Jake played really well the last third of the season.
Was there, at this point, heading into the playoffs last year, any thought about the coach? Was there any story about the coach? Was the coach a consideration for anybody? Again, 100-plus point season.
I'm not sure. It's a good question. I think you knew that there had been some kind of tension between him and Jake. You understood that. I mean, that was pretty clear. You think that you know everything that's going on, but from somebody like yourself who's been in the business for a long time, you don't know what's going on always.
Nope.
You know, like you can know all the things, you can hear things and everything, but Rob, when it's all said and done, if you're not sitting in that room,
Yeah.
you don't know.
Right.
You really don't know. You can have people tell you things and you're like, okay. But until you're in the room. So I always hesitate to say for certain what I knew because I'm not in that room.
Yeah.
Now, over the summer after so the team loses and they make the decision after it seemed like Bruce was going to be okay for a while. Then that kind of caught a lot of people by surprise just because of how what's the word I'm looking for? How the whole thing transpired.
Sure.
Put it that way. We thought put it this way, after they lost, then we thought, well, could maybe if only because, but then it was, no, this is our guy, blah, 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 or, and then it was that. So we just kind of figured, all right. But then obviously things changed.
Then things change. So Jim Montgomery comes in, and I don't know. This is scouting from afar, and we're always guilty of doing this.
Yeah.
Some other things happen. Krejci comes back.
Oh yeah.
Huge. 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 But was that ever an expectation that if A happened, B would happen? No? Okay.
Was it an expectation? I think maybe there were people that hoped that would happen, that a guy like David Krejci would come back. Krejci, I think, as you well know, and you've seen, is incredibly tight with David Pastrnak, and they spent a lot of time together after the season. And so I think that had significant impact on it. And I think David's young family, Krejci, that is, he has a young family after spending the year in Czechia and doing what he wanted to be done and they wanted to happen, meaning live there, experience certain things there, family-wise, language-wise. And then I think there was an understanding that maybe this was a right way for him to go back. And I think his comfort level was at a good place. It's not to say that he was uncomfortable before. I just think he felt he needed to take care of a few things outside of hockey, and he did. And then he's like, all right. And I think he had so much fun with Pastrnak after the season that he's like, why wouldn't we do this again?
Right. Okay. We get to this season, and you've already said you don't, I appreciate where you're coming from. Nobody predicts 64 wins. Nobody predicts, new records and things like that. Give me a sense, though, Billy, watching this team, when did you sense that, okay, hold on here, this is better than maybe we predicted or maybe better than we thought? Got off to a really good start, right? But we both know that first quarter of the season can be a red herring for teams at times. When did it click for this club?
I'm trying to think if I have a specific moment. I couldn't agree with you more about how the first quarter of the season, could be the false love, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But when we kept saying certain things, Rob, like, all right, well, now they're going on the road and they've got, this out of that. Then look, if they can just go 500 here, then they're fine. And they would go, they'd go 7 for 7. You're like, holy smokes. And then, all right, well, hey, now they're coming back after a road trip. And you always know how that first game back after a road trip is. And like, yeah, no problem. And they end up winning that game. And next thing you know, and I'm so bad with numbers, so I apologize if I'm wrong. Please. I'm sure there's going to be somebody listening out there like you're an idiot.
Nobody doing that.
I think at one point, were they 17 of 19 or something? And all of a sudden, you're just like, wait, they've done this without Marchand. They've done this without McAvoy. They've done this partially without Grzelcyk. And you say, wait, okay, so now once they got to a certain point, I forget what it was, where I had a buddy of mine who's a big stats guru who's like, all they need to do is go 4 or 6 games over 500 and they've got like 102 points already. And this was early in the season, like after 20 something games.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And I did that moment. We all just kind of said, this is for real. And when, McAvoy came back, or all guys came back early. It was amazing how well they healed, but also how the staff got them ready.
Yep.
When they came back in and they fit in seamlessly, I think that was a real testament to not only to the players, but also to the coaching and the system and the style and how well they had prepared this team. And all of a sudden you said, wait, this is a really good team. And because this one guy's coming in, instead of everybody looking at that one player like an all-world player like Marchand or McAvoy and saying, Oh, we have to have him. It was like, no, welcome back. Make
Yep.
us better where you can, but don't feel responsible.
Yep.
And because of that, they would elevate the team even to higher levels. And then you start saying, this is the big thing about this team, the depth. You start saying, well, okay, wait, the Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk line was awesome, but then they slowed up a little bit. But the next thing you know, Krejci and all of a sudden Zacha and Pastrnak are going. What do you do? Oh, wait, Charlie Coyle. He's having a fantastic year. Hall's first 26 games of the year were outstanding. You could just see the first 25 games or so. Like, this team is deep as deep could be. And especially with their goaltending going back and forth, you're like, where's this weak link?
You just listed off some names, and I guess I kind of forgot. Typically the powerhouses in the modern NHL have been built from rebuilds, right? Burn it to the ground, first round picks, and maybe you have to do it 2 or 3 times. And this is not a shot at Boston. Actually, it's kind of the opposite. They've really done a nice job of going out and bringing people in from other organizations that complement this team that like Taylor Hall, for instance. He's not meant, it's a long way from Taylor Tyler and Edmonton and Boston way early on. He fits in. Coyle, like I've always liked Charlie Coyle. He's big and he can move. And again, all of these pieces that have come from elsewhere, and they've just seemed like from far away, Billy, just fit in.
Yeah, you talk about there's a Bruin mentality, right? Like they seem like Bruins. Now, last few years before, they had a little bit of up and down play here, but they kind of lost their big bad Bruinsness. Maybe the league also lost that too, right? Yeah. But a lot of these guys that are now around the team feel an awful like Bruins, and I'm getting away from the Taylor Halls and the Charlie Coyles, although Coyle definitely fits that mentality. He's not a bruiser, but he's a beast of a man. Yep. His puck possession skills, his puck possession numbers are extraordinary. He's having his best year. He's really been positioned so well. Third line center, but also his usage, Rob, has been tremendous. He's one of the first PK guys all the time over the boards and this and that, and just awesome. Great year. But the guys like Bertuzzi, guys like Hathaway and Orlov, those players that have been brought in absolutely are what you would call classic Boston Bruin type players. Taylor Hall fit in here right away. He really ensconced or really put himself into the good place with Bruins fans when he basically dictated where he was going to go in that trade with the Buffalo Sabres. I want to go Boston. That's it. I want to go there. Yep. Why? I just want to go there. That's the place that I want to go, how they play, what they're about, what the city's like. And that did a lot of, like, who doesn't like to be liked or loved, right? So that's what the fans felt about him, and he's been great. And the Bruins have had to do that, considering how well that they have played, except for very few what we'll call hiccup years. They're always usually in the bottom, for sure 10, but sometimes even the bottom 6 of drafts in the NHL. So eventually, as we've seen, as I think we've all learned, and especially now I've seen this past season, where while first round picks are awesome, they're really becoming more of an asset to move than they are guaranteed to play, So
at that level, right.
At that level, right. Yeah. Exactly. So the Bruins say, well, all right. And the Bruins have always been good at this too, signing college free agents.
Yeah.
And they got a kid in the minors 2 kids actually, but one guy he's going to back up Swayman Thursday night in Montreal, and Brandon Bussey, who's having an all-star first season in the American Hockey League. Kid's huge, big, played at Western Michigan. It might be his second year, beg your pardon. And, here's another bona fide potential NHLer, but that's what they do well. They have to, because their drafts later in the round, not always really a sure thing at all.
Right. I want, there's a couple of specific players, and one of them, who I want to talk to you about, but I just want to go back to one thing, because you and I have been in this business. You've been an analyst. I'm not taking pot shots at anybody, but what's also remarkable about this season is there were stories swirling around the Bruins. I don't think they made them, but they had to answer for them. One they did, but Pastrnak and the new contract, is he going to get done? Is he going to leave? At least that kept Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnston and those guys busy for a while. And then the signing of the young man that Arizona dropped, and how the leadership group kind of reacted to that. And that's where I kind of want to go on this, Billy, is that there's other things that could have been big distractions and dark clouds, and this team just didn't allow that.
The reason is their leadership group
Yeah.
is tremendous. Something that the Bruins have had the luxury of is, and you can't take it for granted, is leadership starts with one, but has to be done by many,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have one leader that everybody respects, but you still have to have others around them that believe in the same values, that treat things and treat people the same way, and are all what's the pulling on the rope the same
Yep.
direction type of thing.
Yep.
Bruins have always done a really good job too, Rob, of developing core leadership group at different levels. You know, the captain, whatever, the ultimate group of vets, but then you've got that mid-level, and then you have a young level. You need to establish who your young leaders are going to be as well,
Right.
because you need conduits to all different parts of your lineup per se. And you know, the young kids can all look at the veteran and like a Zdeno Chara or Patrice Bergeron, but if they're so intimidated that they don't have somebody else that they can go talk to,
Mm-hmm.
then what are you going to do? And by the way, that's another thing the Bruins do so well. There's no intimidation factor. You know, Patrice Bergeron is likely to put his arm around you and hang out, you know, and lead by friendship, as he is to every once in a while probably have some strong words. And they're not like mean strong words. I mean, the guy he's like Nick Lidstrom, and everybody says it. He's like the perfect human. His hair always looks good. You know, he's always saying the right thing. It's disgusting. It's awful. Like it's just brutal, beyond jealous. But it was kind of the same way with Chara too, albeit, you know, here's this massive man, you know, mountain. Did a lot of things the right way, and it established the culture for this team. So great. To your point about the possible distractions, their focus has been on what's in front of them all season long. I do think that they've had a purpose since day one. The purpose is to look, you see guys like David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron deciding to come back. You've known since day one, since the minute that ink was dry on those contracts, if you're a player on that team, that this could be their last year.
Yep.
Are you going to waste your time and, more importantly, their time?
Right.
And because father time ain't on their side, right?
Yep.
And so if you're going to do that, then what are you doing? What are you doing? And they haven't. This leadership group and the group is in general has been, it's been so much fun to be around. I've learned a lot this year. It's funny, you know, like I just turned 54 and it's a great lesson. You know, you keep on learning, even from these guys that are young bucks at only 30 years old or whatever. It's really been a fun, educational, and just, you know, viewing from the outside, observational season. It's been very cool.
How has, and there's a purpose to this question, how has Jim Montgomery harnessed that leadership group? I'm assuming he just got out of the way, but I'm not there.
At times, you know, I think that's an easy thing to say. You know, hey, I just let them do it. You know, it's Bergie, I let him go. And Jim is, boy, he's been masterful, you know, with his tactical ways, but also his communication, his communicative skills are very, very good. As with Bruce Cassidy, he was excellent. He was loquacious and beautiful with the media. Montgomery's fewer words, but still as beautiful with the media too. Gives you a lot of substance in different ways. But so we're blessed to have those coaches too around us for all these years as a media person. But Montgomery has, you know, he has said, you know, some of my best work is I just let him go. But you have to have trust. Sure. You've got to trust them, and they've even got to trust you, because players still want to be led. They still want to have structure. There's a time that players want to be let go. I mean, you know, and hey, let us handle it. We're good. No worries. Get out. And then there's other times where it's okay. Maybe you need to listen to that coach. Maybe you need to hear a little bit of that tone change in the voice. But Montgomery that's been one of his things, his feel, whether it's on the ice. He's at times we called him in a complimentary way, the mad scientist, with line tweaks in game that almost always worked, especially the first half of the year. And then I think off ice too, where, you know, when he looks at Bergeron and Marchand and Foligno and McAvoy, and I'm missing guys, I know that, but all those guys, I think he just says, all right, listen, these are pros. These are guys that if we help lead them the direction we want to go with certain things, and they're taking it, they're doing their best to take it in the direction that we want, I got to let them go. I do. I got to let him go a bit. I got to let it trust, because he always says these guys are unbelievable players to do what they do. Sometimes I just need to zip my mouth. He admitted too. He's like, look, in my past, you know, maybe he wasn't as positive as I needed to be. And he's, if I think with this group, I think it's real easy to sit here and say right now, hindsight being 2020, or not hindsight, but the recency, the history of this season, it's easy to say just to let it go. But I think he has told himself throughout the season, these guys are going to be okay. I can help tweak things, but you're going to be okay. I got to trust them to go in that right direction.
So, Billy, I said there was a point to this question. Here in Calgary, the relationship between the players and the coach became very public. Nobody wanted that, but that's the way it came out. They're not on the same page. Daryl Sutter became the Flames' all-time leading coach, now up to 403 games. That's the all-time leading coach, 403 games. John Cooper's been in Tampa Bay for 10 years, which I postulate, and that's why I asked you the question about the leadership group. Has coaching changed in the way you get? Is it more important now to have Stamkos, Hedman send the message, Bergeron, Pasternak send the message, carry the message? Is that the next level of coaching now as we move forward, that the coaches, the good teams are always going to have, and I suppose it's always been that way, but even more so now, the coach tries to send the message through the leaders.
But only if the leaders and the coach are on the same page.
Right, which is not here.
Right. So you can have great leaders, but for some reason, if they're not copacetic with the coaches,
gotcha.
I don't think it matters. I mean, I think the most important thing about coaching still, I don't think it's ever changed, by the way.
Okay.
Just get yourself a good freaking goalie. That'll help you,
Yes, fair enough.
I really don't think things have changed much in the last 100 years.
All right.
I wonder if he asked Scotty Bowman how important Ken Dryden was to him.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the most important thing about new age coaching is, how do you talk with players, not down to them?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you talk with them and you make them feel that they are involved in the process, then I do believe that you are allowing them ownership of certain things, and they do not want to own everything. Again, players want to play.
Yes.
Okay, they want to play. They also want to win, right?
Right.
But so if you lead them in that direction and you say, hey, try this, not that, what do you think? I think an awful lot of times then you get the buy-in. Oh, holy, this guy knows what he's talking about, and he's given me the listen. He's given me the ear, so to speak. And, little things, days off, right? Yep. Days off goes a long way. But then not only that, but then if you say to the leaders, hey, what days off what extra days off what do you think about this or that? Or if the leader comes in and says, hey, I can tell you there's 3 guys that feel like crap right now. Let's, maybe this, what the coach says, you got it. All of a sudden, there's a partial ownership in it. I'm not saying that you've got to kowtow to all of their needs and desires, but coaching, Lindy Ruff told me years and years and years ago, I asked him years ago, when he was still with Buffalo, what's the biggest difference, Lindy? How have you been able to survive so long, right? And he said, it's how I communicate with the players. I talk with them now instead of down to them. And I think that is the most important thing now.
I'm glad I'm always glad to talk to you, but that little nugget right there, talking to them, not down to them, really makes a lot of sense. You mentioned goalies. We do a little thing here on the show. I every day I tweet out a little reading assignment from somewhere around the league. And earlier in the week or last week, it was from The Athletic and Fluto Shinzawa. Mm-hmm. And that, I don't know if you read it, on the 2 inches on Linus Ullmark. Mm-hmm. There's an incredible story. 38th in save percentage last year, and now is likely going to be your Vezina Trophy winner.
Yeah, if he's not the Vezina Trophy winner, we investigation galore.
Yeah. Jack Adams and Vezina for sure, right? And
and Selke
and Selke. I apologize. And Selke.
Yeah. Patrice has had a better year this year than he has last year, which is
that's wrong. That's wrong. It's just wrong.
I know. And he looks so good. Anyways, again, it's just disgusting. Linus Ullmark, Rob, has been so comfortable this season, from his personality to his presence in the net. it's been, I think, and this is not hyperbole. I hope that's the right word of the use,
Yep.
right use of the word, if I could speak. I think I think that there's been one, at most two goals this year where the ultimate analyst cliche of maybe, that one he might look at and not, be happy with
Mhm.
it, like that one back. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not like, he gets beat. He ends up getting beat because you got to tip your hat to the other team. There's some good
Sure.
players on the other team,
Yep.
but his style, his presence, his rebound control, and his attitude in net have been absolutely spot on. It has been tremendous to watch. And you talk about the 2 inches,
Mhm.
it's the flow. And what that is about, and I'm not a former goalie, so I thought it was an interesting article too. And I, working with Razor, with Raycroft, I talk about it with him, and I
Yeah.
learn an awful lot there too. It's just about keeping your body in motion much more than getting out, getting set, waiting for the shot, and then having to explode to make
Right.
your second save. And so there's a flow there. And while the premise seems very normal and natural when you read about it and then you see it, to the uneducated, you don't really know it. And also, you say, well, if that was so easy, why doesn't everybody do it? And I think more and more of these guys are doing it. I also think I know we went through an area of robotic goaltenders. That everybody got to the set, they got square, they got big, they cheated their
Yep.
equipment. Actually, it wasn't cheating at the time. They used their cheater equipment, but it was
Yep.
legal, and they block shots. Now, as these guys go from behemoth and robotic to behemoth and athletic, you teach them to use fluidness or fluidity to their game, or add it to their game, and then they can make saves. And so you think, you look at it and you think about all of the second saves he's made going laterally on the second opportunity, and you're like, that makes sense. It's been impressive, so impressive.
Last one for you, and it has to do with, and I purposefully kept it to the back end. Pasternak. We talked briefly about the contract, but you and I have been around long enough to know that this game has been criticized. The players in this game have been criticized for not showing enough character, and then when they show character, they get criticized.
Right.
The achievements are one thing, but just the way this young man carries himself, the All-Star game, coming to games, he's just a breath of fresh air. How does he fit in Boston? I mean, obviously the results are going to make fans happy, but is he going to be now part of that lexicon of Boston sports history?
I sure hope so, because he's a good person. He
Mm.
is such a good person. I have a saying: "There's never a bad day in Pastaville." I mean, the guy is always smiling. He's always himself. Whatever he does, whether it's via his comments, which are really not that
No.
radical or everything, but it's just wonderfully honest, and he says it with his accent, and he makes you feel good, like he just does. And I think that that's a special thing you either have or you don't, Rob, as
Yeah.
a person. um or his personality shines through in his clothes. And for somebody like myself who really loves clothes, and just the personality it makes you have, or no, I shouldn't they allow your personality to come out through them. They're
Yeah.
real, and he just it's real for him. And he should be, because I mean he really wants to be here. Like, it's not just signing the contract for the money. Of course the money's nice. I mean, who wouldn't want to
Sure.
sign $90 million? But this is where he started. This is where he wants to be. This is what he knows. He really wants to be that next generation of legendary Bruins. I mean,
Mm.
think about the group that,
Well,
people say, oh, well, no, Bergeron's going to be gone and Krejci's going to be gone. And you're right, they're going to. But they now have McAvoy for 8 more years. They have Ullmark for 2 more years. They have Lindholm for 7 more years, I believe it is. You got Coyle for a few more. You've got DeBrusk potentially, for another whatever. Zaka, we haven't even mentioned him. What a player he's been this year. He
Yep.
signed a 4-year deal extension. So he's part of this group, and he wants it. And where I've seen the biggest improvement in his game and maturity level is his leadership. He really wants to do things the right way. Look, he's going to turn the puck over because it's on his stick so much. He leads the league in shots on goal, and he leads the league in giveaways.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's going to happen. If you look at the list of everybody who gives the puck away in the NHL, these are all stars that have the puck on their stick all the time. Now, you might say, hey, clean it up and within 6 feet of the blue line, please, if you can. But he's such a special player. I mean, he's a 60 goal guy.
Yeah.
Like 50 is unbelievable. Then you say, well, wait, he decided to put throttle down, and he's a 60 goal guy now in a matter of a week and a half. And that's pretty heady stuff, Rob. That's
It is.
that's different levelness, right? And this is a guy that, this town has had some really fun hockey characters. You go back to the Derek Sandersons,
Mhm. Yeah.
you go back to those early 70s and the Phil Espositos, and I
Milbury.
mean, oh yeah, I mean, he's got it. He's not outlandish. He's not going to, beat the snot out of you like other guys did, but he's going to score on you. And he, I think for the next couple of years, and of course, his center is going to be important. The guys around him, but I think they're going to be pretty good. What center wouldn't want to come here and play with him?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely.
He's special. He really is. So it's fun to be around him too.
Billy, always good to catch up with you. Thanks for doing this. I'm hoping that we'll be able to grab you in the middle of the playoffs, maybe between series, because something tells me you're working till June this year. That's me, not you. You didn't say it. I said it.
Hey, listen, here's the good news, Rob. All right. Yeah. I'm scheduled to work through the Stanley Cup regardless.
Okay.
Here's the reality. As much as I love working through the Stanley Cup, I hope that half my games are at home.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I will say this, in a small, tiny way, the Boston Bruins have played a role in what has happened here in Calgary.
How's that?
Well, that game here at the Dome, where the Calgary Flames played the best team in the National Hockey League and outchanced them and outshot them and outplayed them and did everything and found a way to lose, was just the game that everybody points to. Like, if you come away, if you could do that, that's what they should be. And you can't win every game, Billy, but they competed against the best team in the National Hockey League that night. And they were right there for one game.
Well,
that was just so few and far between.
You're right. The Bruins had played the night before with Edmonton.
100%.
And I'm not saying that's part of the NHL. Back-to-back's part of it. No, I'm not taking anything away. That was a prime night for Calgary,
right?
To do what they did. And then that was one of those nights. And you asked me much earlier in this chat about was there a time? And I thought about that game a little bit, and I'm like, no, because the Bruins already knew that they were really good until then. But that was the night where you completely unequivocally knew that Linus Ullmark was winning the Vezina that night. 57 shots, 54 saves in that game. Bruins record, by the way, of shots faced for a goalie in that game. But I get what you're saying now. I do. Calgary was really, really, really good that game, and how the Bruins held on for dear life, we don't know. And that's the prime example too for what. And I'll finish with this: is that there've been so many games this year, Rob, where afterwards we literally will giggle like little kids before actually on the air. Both in post game and even in morning brew with myself and Razor, where we're giggling because we don't know what else to say. Like, did we just really see that happen?
Yeah.
And we know it's just regular season. And more importantly, they know it's just regular season.
Sure.
But if you still can't appreciate what we've been through,
it's fun. It was fun. It is fun. I hope everybody out there enjoys it. You're a good man, buddy. It's been a long time. Thank you for everything. Like I say, we'll try to do this again here this spring. But Billy, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Rob, great to see you, buddy.
All right. Talk soon. There you go. The great Billy Jaffe from NESN. Just one of my favorites in the game.